you issued a statement through Freedom House a few days after the recent election, talking about the responsibilities that President-elect Trump has to do those two things, to uphold the rule of law and condemn political violence. I wonder if you could say more about how you see that responsibility that the administration has.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me just mention those two things, which is we elect leaders. We give them power over our daily lives and over the levers of power, and we expect them to then uphold democratic principles. And one of them is to insist on nonviolence and to create, through their rhetoric and through their action and through their incentivizing of their colleague, a deterrence against people using violence to address any political grievance or any political difference in the society. And the second is we elect leaders, or we choose leaders to uphold the very Constitution that is the bedrock of our society. And for those leaders, it's almost a much greater responsibility than it is on the average citizen, because they are not only just an average citizen, but they are also leading us through and holding office and acting on behalf of the American people. So we felt after President-elect Trump was elected, just to remind the nation of where we are. Elections are hard fought in this nation, and they are far too long fought, in my view, but they have long campaign seasons where we go at each other, party against party, candidate against candidate, and then one person is elected through our system. We accept that election and we allow for the peaceful transition of power, and then that person governs an entire nation. They don't govern their party, they don't govern their favorite people, they don't govern the people they like on a Tuesday only. They govern the entire nation. And we wanted to take that moment to remind what a sacred opportunity that is for every elected leaders, presidential, congressional, mayoral, governor, down the line, just this important piece that they now hold the opportunity and the responsibility of governing according to the laws of the nation and their respective states, and to govern the entire people. And that is a challenge for a polarized nation. And to ensure that even as our system respects that majority wins, that we also have the protection of minorities. And that's not just racial or ethnic minorities. That is a protection of anyone who may be a political minority or to be any other minority, to say we are a nation that recognizes the winner as the leader, but really as the person who then is responsible for everybody having all of their rights protected under a democratic system.
So, I mean, as you know, President Trump does not have the best track record, perhaps to put it mildly, of condemning violence or, always showing respect for the rule of law. So I guess I wonder, given that, what are some of the things that you're watching for or you will be watching for in his second term, or where are you finding hope within the incoming administration, given what we know about how things went the first time?
Yeah, we're watching, and we hold every president to the same account, which is we have standards, we have rules, we have Constitution, we have laws on the books, and we expect that President Trump, everyone in his administration, and everyone who was elected earlier this month will hold themselves to it. And we are an organization that is committed to raising awareness when that isn't done, regardless of which party and which person. We believe that the principles and processes of the nation have to be upheld for the sake of our democracy. We're also watching for rhetoric around political violence. We're watching also the use of democratic tools for undemocratic gain. And that's something we see increasingly in a lot of places, which is there's a process that is set out, but the process is there in order to advance our democracy, not really to advance the gains of any individual. So there's a whole host of things which we are watching just to ensure that this administration, as we would with any administration, follows all of the rules that undergird democratic infrastructure in our nation.
And let me just add, as a board member of Freedom House, but also just as a researcher, these are really not particular to any one president. We've seen in India, for instance, violence of almost every sort has gone down under Modi. Mm-hmm. The one exception is political violence against minority groups, against Muslims in that case. All the other kinds have gone down. And so we see that there. We see in Brazil under Bolsonaro, violence rose. So one of the things that Freedom House has done since its founding in 1941 is really just set a level playing field and say, how does this administration compare to that administration? How does this country compare to that country? What are the variables that you need in a democracy? And one of the key variables is that political contestation is done at the ballot box and not through guns and violence and so on. And they rate them, and they rate all countries based on the same criteria. And I think that's really important in the present moment, just to set a baseline for any president, prime minister, leader in any country, because we are seeing a lot of variability in political violence. We're seeing countries led by far right and far left parties that have quite a bit of violence. Venezuela comes to mind, Nicaragua. And we're seeing countries led by far left and far right that don't have a whole lot of political violence, like Italy. And so this is very variable. And by just drawing a line under the goal of nonviolent democracies, among many other variables that Freedom House looks at, they're able to compare countries and kind of call balls and strikes in a fair way.